afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 27th. I'm Rebecca Mosley, the co-founder of Laughing Place, and with me this afternoon to discuss various Disney headlines is our CEO, site co-owner Ben Breitbart, up over there. And down below, we've got our staff writer, Tony Betty. I think of him as the resident Disney animation and Pixar expert around here. If I have any questions in those areas, I reach out to Tony. So I suspect first thing we're going to be talking about is some animation stuff. But Ben, how's your day been going?
It's going okay. It was a late night thanks to Anaheim Planning Commission.
Right. We'll be talking about that later, too.
I've started kind of a new column that I've been doing, but I didn't want to do it before the Planning Commission was done in case something happened. So stayed up a little late last night. And then yesterday was kind of busy. So today's been just kind of recovery. Been playing with my new car. So it's been fun.
Oh, that's right. Hey, by the way, the Disney Digest for yesterday, it posted last night around 9 o'clock. So if you're an East Coaster, you may not have caught it. Ben kind of sharing his thoughts on the day's news. We'll have a link below if you haven't yet read that, but I'm sure some of those topics will be discussed today. So Ben, I will let you lead the discussion, and then I will.
So Tony, you had a chance to watch Iwaju, which is the partnership between Disney Animation and Kugali, the animation firm from Africa. It was kind of a big deal when they announced it, right? Like, about Jennifer Lee.
How many years ago was that when they announced it?
27, 28, something like that. And, talked about how she read a report about how these guys were wanted to become the new Disney. And so she says, well, let's go partner with them. But since then.
Can I addend that?
Yeah.
They said in Africa, we're going to beat Disney. And then they used a word that I'm not going to say on a live stream in the report. So
yeah. Anyway,
derriere.
If you can't beat them, join them, or if they want to beat you, join, or whatever. But I haven't heard much about it. So, give your social reaction.
Well, I can't say too much about it. Yeah. But what I would say is, if you could kind of take the some of the ideas thrown in Oliver and Company and throw them out there, and then put it in kind of a real world setting. What I would say, and this is probably what'll be on a tweet later.
So Oliver and Company in a real world setting, as opposed to like New York City in the 80s?
With humans and not dogs and cats.
Okay.
And not Oliver Twist either. But like, if you remember the villain of Oliver and Company, we'll just lead with that. But the one thing I love about animation is you could literally do anything with animation, and Iwaju takes a second to embrace that, but once it does, it's finally fun. But until you get to that point, it's kind of, why is this not a different kind of? It's more of a serious drama at times than an actual like all in on fantasy and fun. It did, Kyle. It's really hard.
Kyle coming in. This is our editor.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
So what? I mean, in terms of presentation, it's a series, right? So how many episodes are we talking?
It's six episodes. They're all a digestible length. Some, I think the longest is 26 minutes, and the shortest is 16 or 17.
Oh wow.
But yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't turn this into a movie a la Moana 2.
I was thinking that, but again, going back to how long it takes for it to kind of kickstart into where it gets really fun with the medium, I could see why, because I'm genuinely concerned if people will make it past episode 3.
Okay, well, we'll have to,
because it's a slow burn, as they say.
I am particularly fond of this little Oten character. Well, I mean, he seems like quite adorable, and yet there's
she, for the record.
Sorry.
She.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
For the record, she. Yes.
Okay. She,
we don't know yet.
Quite adorable, but yet there's this. I don't know. There's this secret element when I look? I'm excited to get to know the character more. Should I temper my expectations, or should I continue to lean into this and be excited for Ocean?
You talk about a secret element. That secret is told literally right off the bat.
Okay, cool. I'm excited.
Worry about a secret element, but yeah.
Very cool. Yay.
So, can you think of a time? I mean, going back to Mer Babies, this isn't the first time Disney has sort of outsourced. Although, I guess this is.
Hold on a second. I think I know where your question's going, and let me just turn that just a peg, so you could see what I think I was going to be my answer based on what you're going to say.
But they have partnered with other studios before, but this one's a little different, and it's not like The Wild, or where basically Disney was releasing inputs from a different studio.
Yeah. Which is how Pixar was too.
Pixar, yeah. This they kind of pitched this as going to be more collaborative. It's hard to tell where it actually ended up, in terms of production, because there has been like no press on this. But
so there is a behind the scenes thing I think that's going to drop alongside with the series.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested to get to know more of that, because it does talk about the far more collaborative nature than, as you said, with The Wild, or are you ready? Valiant.
Oh, haven't heard that name in a while.
I attended the premiere of Valiant in Hollywood.
By the way, if you're
by attended, I mean worked. And by worked, I meant scooped ice cream.
By the way, Iwaju is coming to Disney Plus February 28th. It is
tomorrow.
It is set in I want to say a futuristic, modern, African.
Lagos, Nigeria.
Like Nigeria, thank you.
Yep.
But it slipped my mind for the moment. And I've seen some trailers for it. I'm excited for it, and it arrives tomorrow. Yay, Disney Plus.
I'm looking at the review will drop tomorrow morning, right? So
yeah, it should.
What were you saying, Tony, about the poster?
I was gonna say I'm looking at the scenes they chose for it, and it's
Oh, I can't wait! I can't wait for it to drop so we can have an in-depth discussion, Tony.
He does. Okay. He does feel very Fagin-ish.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Benji. That's exactly what I'm going with. Yeah. It's very real world problems in a fantastical setting.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Right, well, Tony, you should go watch that. I guess write your review, and then you can go watch. Well, I don't know how much time I have, but watch that documentary. I'd love to know your take on that.
I might already have it playing, so I can watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right.
We'll see you later, Tony. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely.
And I will link to Tony's articles down below, because he has education within animation, and he has a passion that I greatly appreciate his insights, because it's nice to kind of have my own little pocket animator here to just be like, hey, Tony, why do I like that? Nobody helps.
It sounds like a device you get when it's like when you want to do like stop motion, but you don't have the full rig. You just pull out your pocket animator and
That's one of the great things about this gig here at Laughing Place, is that I'm surrounded by a group of super passionate fans who are really educated within the different arms of Disney. And so, like, if something, because Disney's so big now, when I was first writing about the Disney company, they weren't Marvel and Star Wars and all these other things. I mean, they've always been animation, obviously, but I hadn't studied animation. And so now, to have people, I work alongside who have studied it and can help me better understand why things connect with me at times and other aspects don't. It's, like I say, it's part of the fun of this gig. And then I've got you with your, business sense to help me sort through Blackwell stuff, and it's all good.
Well, yeah, I think animation, it's funny because, we grow up loving animation because we like cartoons, right? But it's not until I think you get older that you appreciate the artistry behind it, because you're not really thinking of the people who draw. Even despite having seen every making of thing growing up, it wasn't, quite frankly, until I attended the celebration of life for Frank Thomas when they really went through like his choices, because the characters are so real. You don't realize that everything that's on that page, every motion, is a choice that they thought to make that, or I went to Bernie Mattinson's celebration, and I talked about in Beauty and the Beast when the Beast gets frustrated at Belle and goes like, and you're like that was a choice to make. That wasn't just an actor kind of trying to expose, like that was someone had to think, oh, I want to draw it that way.
When Andreas Deja was able to hold my attention for, I want to say 7 to 10 minutes talking about Aurora's hair and the choices made regarding that, I was like, oh wow, okay, this is truly magnificent. It's exactly.
So transitioning from animation to live action, there's a shakeup. That's my official shakeup dance.
That's your shakeup dance. That's what we do. There's a Disney shakeup.
A Disney live action with Sean Bailey, who first came on my radar when he was like co-owner of what was it called? It was the company that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon had, and Sean Bailey was like the Pete Townsend of that trio.
Okay.
And they made that show for ABC called Push Nevada, where like you could win like $1 million. And then he produced Tron Legacy, and then
Project Greenlight. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that was the company was named something else.
Okay.
I'll say like it doesn't matter.
Live
Planet. There you go. And then he became sort of the head of live action for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And to his credit, he tried a lot of different things. Many of them didn't work. What did seem to work was live action adaptations of animated classics, which I would say had mixed results. Things like The Jungle Book were, I think, well received both critically and financially. I think more recent things like The Little Mermaid, even Haunted Mansion, which was an adaptation of not necessarily an animated movie, but less so. Did some original movies for Disney Plus, like Togo, Stargirl, things like that didn't seem to move the needle either, but that may say more about the state of streaming movies. Netflix is having challenges with movies as well, so I wouldn't necessarily put all the blame on him. But it does seem like they wanted to make a change, and David Greenbaum is going to lead the live action division of the Walt Disney Studios, which will include Disney Live Action and 20th Century Studios. So not Marvel, not Lucasfilm, not Searchlight. He came from Searchlight, but there'll be live action Disney. There's 20th Century Studios, which is also led by another gentleman who name I am trying to find, but Steve Asbell. So he will oversee basically every live action non-Marvel Star Wars movie, excluding Searchlight, moving forward. What caught me interesting here was the quote that they said, where they said they're looking forward to working with David to come up with a way to move both franchises, 20th Century Studio and Disney Live Action, forward. Because I think they're really trying to see what makes sense. What's a Disney live action movie these days? They've transitioned, from the sort of the 60s, 50s, 60s of whatever Walt wanted it to be, to the sort of zany comedies of the 70s and 80s, to the more large scale productions like Pirates of the Caribbean and George of the Jungle, and then to the sort of live action. Basically, they're just kind of mining their franchises for live action adaptations that we're at today. And so it'll be interesting to see what, it might be a bit, but what their vision is. What is a Disney live action movie? Because, they're running out of, we used to joke that there's a site that would just make up a headline: Disney doing live action adaptation of Great Mouse Detective. Disney live, they ran out of films to make up stories of live action adaptation. So, it was a well that was going to go dry eventually. But, how do they move forward is going to be interesting to me.
Just one thing, if you are a fan of Tron and this has you concerned, don't be concerned, because Sean Bailey will continue to work on Tron as I depart, according to the quote that we have featured from Sean Bailey regarding his departure. And Kyle points out regarding Stargirl, it was a movie so successful it got a sequel and then pulled from existence. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they give him the nice send off of, yes, you can still keep producing it, but yeah, I just would really like to see a strategy. And there's been, if you look at live action movies lately, I don't want to say they're completely devoid of franchises, but you see Bob Marley beating Madam Web.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen success with Barbenheimer. Obviously Barbie is a franchise as a toy, but not necessarily a shoe-in as a film. Mm-hmm. And then you had Oppenheimer, which not a lot of toy potential, unless you're Putin. They're seeing that sort of like go out to the movie to see something interesting. Like the middle's coming back. Everything had to be a big movie, and then no one came out to see the middle. But it seems like people are, the quality over quantity thing seems to be holding firm. But that's easy. No one ever said we're going to make a bad movie. But I think they're now trying to figure out what type of movie will resonate with audiences in a way, in a world where no one has any money. Warner Brothers has no money. Paramount has no money. Disney has the most money of anybody, and they're still under, threat of corporate raiders. So it'd be interesting to see.
Well, I know in our green room, we have one of our movie buffs here. Can you want to join this discussion? Can I bring you in? Okay, cool. Because MikeC, you're the film guy around here. You got any thoughts on this shakeup? Kind of any hopes or?
I want my Oppenheimer action figures. Is really what I took out of that conversation.
I should have known.
Well, when I feel like how like they have the action figure and then they do a different version. It's like
yeah.
Radioactive
scuba gear Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm sorry I even asked.
No, but I like this idea of the middle coming back. I'll always prefer, I think, smaller scale, smaller stakes, character-based films, I think, and sounds like that might become a thing again.
There you go.
I wouldn't complain. I never really got into the whole live action remakes of the animated features idea. I was blown away by The Lion King, to be honest, just because of the technology. To me, I thought it was like an experimental film. But otherwise, I don't know. I didn't really get the whole point. So I would be happy to see that kind of go away.
See, my two favorite are Jungle Book, which had the technological component to was a love letter to Disney animation, not just the Jungle Book, but was just, and then Cruella, just because it was, there's no canon here, right? It was just a sort of a different take, a different way to look at a story, and kind of sat okay on its own. So you didn't need to kind of compare. I think the challenge with a lot of the live action adaptations is you look at them and you go, okay, well, there's the Disney animated version. There's a new version. I'm going to see which one I like better. And the animated one's going to win because it's, it's a classic one. And unless I wish they kind of went more, if they, you're going to mind the franchises, that's fine. But do it from a more alternative perspective than just retelling the story that we know.
Yes, that would be more appealing to me as well. Though I haven't seen Cruella. I also haven't watched Little Mermaid live action yet.
It's very boring. That's a quote from The Little Mermaid, just in case you like, from Scuttle. Never mind. But it's not very boring. Well, I don't know. Not boring to me. You might have been bored. This was the DisneylandForward workshop at the Planning Commission.
I have
my lady Lucille Kring.
Yeah. This is the third time I've gone to one of these down at the Anaheim City Hall, and I don't find them boring. I actually find them pretty interesting. The only problem is that they're getting a little repetitive. Like, I kind of want them to cover some new territory. And they kind of zoomed in on one sticking point for this particular meeting, both in the presentations and then in the public comments. This the potential closure of Magic Way to public vehicular traffic. And if you don't know, Magic Way sits directly to the south of the Pixar Pier parking structure and north of the downtown Disney parking lot, which is now
in the former downtown Disney parking lot.
Yeah,
it's cast parking.
Right,
Whatever.
cast member parking north of the Disneyland Hotel. But this is the intersection you can see right there on the screen, the intersection of Magic Way and Walnut Street, which borders a residential area to the west there. And part of Disney's proposal is to close this off to public vehicular access and add a crosswalk there across Walnut Street. Apparently, there's a lot of jaywalking happening there from people in the neighborhood crossing over to get to Disneyland. So I guess they want to kill two birds with one stone. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, go ahead. And some people are upset. Some of the residents are upset about that idea, I guess, because they use Magic Way as a shortcut to get from their neighborhood over to Disneyland Drive. And then they use Disneyland Drive either going north up to the 5 freeway or south down to Catella Avenue. And, you know, when I first heard that complaint, I was like, well, why not just go up to Ball Road and take a right, or just go south down to Catella and take a left? I guess they said that is too, the people making the complaint were saying that was too heavily trafficked already. And it's just, this is going to divert more traffic into those directions and add, somebody said like 15 minutes would be added to their commute every day. So I guess I understand why those people would be upset about it, but Disney did a study, not a study, they actually clarified. They did not do a traffic study. They did a traffic count, 2 weekdays and 2 weekend days, looking at Magic Way and the people coming in off of Walnut Street to gain access to Disneyland Drive. And they said 99% of that traffic would have been people actually accessing Disneyland Resort, like guests and other users of Disneyland Resort. And then there's something like 30 cars actually went down Walnut and then took that left going up to the 5 freeway. So it's a small, relatively small amount. I think they said, less than 1% of the total amount of traffic on that street is using that shortcut. So it is affecting some people, but I don't think it's enough to change their mind about closing that street. I know that earlier in the project in Disneyland Forward, they were actually planning on closing all of Disneyland Drive to public traffic as well. And that part of the project has been abandoned. So that as it stands currently, Disneyland Drive would remain open to public traffic cutting through the resort, with the potential for those parking lots to the north and south of Disneyland Hotel being redeveloped, rezoned into theme park space, and then there would be pedestrian bridges built across Disneyland Drive from the parks going into that space to allow access that way. It is interesting if you're into like the actual geography of Disneyland Resort and the development of future theme park space on what is right now parking lots, which, I don't know. I find it relatively fascinating, but I do kind of wish, there's more of these meetings coming up in the next couple of months. I kind of hope we get some new info, although I don't know what else there is to say before they either approve or don't approve the project.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get more info, because I think Disney just gave enough to get the project approved, and then we'll want to do their big hoopla, at a D23 event or something like that.
Right.
It's just funny to me, because I remember back when they did the first resort expansion, and Magic Way, which is essentially Cerritos Avenue, moved up a little bit. They designed it in such a way because the neighbors were concerned that Disneyland traffic would go into their neighborhoods. And so that is why when you go there, they really, it's really uninviting to keep going straight, and you can only make a right-hand turn. And it was designed to basically, they needed the road in order to provide access to what was the downtown Disney parking lot before Simba became the sort of de facto parking lot. And so I think obviously, I mean, I can't understand how it would add 15 minutes to anyone's commute, but it seems to me that a lot of people that are upset about it are not necessarily really upset that they're, closing the road. It's more about selling a public street to a private company. And for some people, that is just sort of an affront, regardless of, how many people are on it. If you listen to, they had several members of the community that live on Walnut, and they for the most part, they were pretty supportive of the project because they, many of them walk over to Disneyland, as I would if I lived in Walnut, but wanted it to be safer with the crosswalk. You can see sort of how the plants have been trampled with people crossing through a median that doesn't have a crosswalk. So that makes sense. And, so you still preserve the ability to walk from Harbor all the way over to Walnut on, during business hours. But, they don't want people, even though they're not supposed to make a left turn onto Walnut, people do it illegally because what you do, and not what I do because I avoid it. But, so there's always this sort of, and understandably on some of the things that have happened in the past, negativity to the Disneyland Resort. I think a lot of that waned after COVID when people saw the impact it has to the tax base when Disneyland's not open. But it seems like that was a lot of, because they'd come up with every complaint, fireworks and stuff like that had nothing to do with this project. But it's just funny how Magic Way is the one thing they can find that's controversial. So they put all their effort into Magic Way complaints when, if fewer than 100 people are using it in a day, if you figure the tax revenue per day, I mean, you could pay every person probably, enough to, more than minimum wage to offset it.
And this graphic is from, I'm asking.
Yeah. This is the traffic, sort of a extrapolation of the traffic count they did as a response to the criticism of the project closure of Magic Way. Okay. So 11,000 people, I should say people, but cars went down Magic Way. 99% of them were Disneyland traffic, either cast members going into their, what used to be the Lilo and Stitch lots, or going into the Pixar Palace parking structure. Where in less than 100 trips on weekdays were not related to Disneyland Resort, and less than 10 on weekends. So, I think
that there's a small impact on the community, that the majority of the traffic in this that would be impacted is related to the people who are making the decision to impact it, I guess is the dynamic. Okay.
Right. Because presumably, the traffic routing would have to be relocated anyway, in terms of getting into the structure, because the road will be closed. So, they'll have to find a different way to get people into the structure. But, I'm not going to say there's no impact, because obviously 100 people is 100 people, but relative to, the potential upside, not just creatively or as Disney fans, but to the city of Anaheim, seems like a decent trade-off.
And we'll have a link below to Mike's event recap that we've got here on the site. And then he also did like a live stream collection of tweets from the event. You can find that Twitter he posted on X at our Laughing Place account. And Mike does a great job of encapsulating moment by moment these Disneyland Forward meetings, and I greatly appreciate them.
Thank you.
I think, Mike, we are going to let you go and head off onto whatever other adventures you have today. Anything you want to share that's upcoming that you want to share?
I just reviewed this book, new Star Wars High Republic book comes out next
Nice.
week. So that review's up now on laughingplace.com.
Very
Tomorrow's a new episode of The Bad Batch that I'll be recapping and reviewing, and then we'll talk about it on Who's the Boss Thursday with Mike Mack as the guest.
Very cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Mike, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye, Mike.
Sorry, cut him off.
Oh, well, he can still hear me. Bye, Mike.
Oh man, let's see, Benji, you wanted to talk about some Disney shareholder stuff.
So it's Decision 24 time, and I feel like Disney has put out a fact or fiction document for going over Nelson Peltz, and as if the gift that keeps on giving, Wendy's today announced that they are going to go to dynamic pricing for their food. So depending on when you choose to eat, you will pay more or less.
Wow. I hadn't heard that news yet.
I think we're used to dynamic. Obviously, the theme parks do it. There's plenty of industries that do it. I don't know that fast food is really a place where we're prepared for it, because I don't know that you are going to. I can, if I'm booking a flight, I can go like, oh, maybe I'll take this day instead of that day. So, it moves the demand. When people are hungry, they're hungry. And
so am I getting penalized for eating during high volume, or am I getting penalized for eating off time?
No, I think you'd be penalized. It's to move demand to off time. So it would be more expensive to eat, okay. I'm guessing at like 12 than it would be to eat at 2.
Okay.
Which you could also do like with couponing and stuff. So I just think because they're spending all this money to create new digital price on you at will.
Wow.
It's just, I don't know. But as for those of you who don't know, the chairman of the board of Wendy's is Nelson Peltz. So, be prepared for more dynamic pricing at the parks. I mean, they've already got it, but what if you go to ODV cart and it's like, it's 90 degrees out. You want that water, it's $6.50.
Oh, see, I was thinking more like parade time versus non-parade time. I wasn't thinking like that. That's just not okay. The other is like not okay, but in a different way.
And I'm pro business, and I think the market can decide if this is going to be a thing or not. But it just seems like a cheap 3D trick. It's not. There's many times I'm totally okay with on-demand, flex pricing for theme parks, because it makes sense to charge more for Christmas Day and New Year's Day than it does for February 12th. But I don't know. I just think, because it's not like you're planning your day around when to go to Wendy's. It's not that kind of item. Right?
I can't. I have to process this off screen. I can't do this in front of people.
Anyway, fact or fiction. I think you got that going. We can go through.
Yeah, I do. There you go. Fact or fiction.
So, Nelson Peltz claims that he has media expertise, and according to Nelson Peltz on CNBC, by the way, they said I have no media experience. I don't claim to have any. So he either does or doesn't. I'll let you know. Well, I guess it depends. He is on the board of Madison Square Garden Entertainment. So it depends how you view that as media expertise.
I was going to say you're a Disney shareholder. I'm not going to say that you have an amount of shares that impact the decision making of the Disney company, but you have shares. Would you define him as somebody with media expertise?
I would say he has media expertise in unsuccessful ventures. So,
wow,
Madison Square Garden is famously poorly run. So Okay.
Wow, I think I would go with the I don't claim. I think I would rather just be like I don't have any. Okay, well, there you go. Okay.
Trian claims Jay Rizzullo's media experience and business acumen will be additive to the Disney board. So he joined iHeartMedia in 2019, and that's a chart of the stock price since basically there's no funny business here, right? Because it's when he joined to where it is today. It did go up, and then it went crashing down. So now I don't know. I mean, that's obviously a snapshot, but you know, what I think you could make a case that Jay Rizzullo was successful at Disney prior. I mean, I wouldn't make that case, but you can make that case.
What would the case be for Jay Rizzullo having had a positive impact upon the Disney brand during his tenure?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you would think they would make it if he had one. I don't think. No, it's hard to point to any sort of initiative. Whether it was him, he was CFO. He wasn't. At the parks, I would say it's a mixed bag, right? He was better than. He came off of Paul Pressler, which no one liked, and so it was a step in the right direction. But it was, it wasn't really. They weren't doing Galaxy's Edge or any cutting edge.
What types of, as a Disney consumer, what aspects of my Disney experience would I kind of lay at the feet of Jay Rizzullo and be like, well, that's an indicative of his business acumen, his decision making?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's the hard part, right? It's
that's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah,
Ben.
but that he wasn't on the ground floor of that.
Okay.
No pun intended. I'm trying to the scaled down Tower Terror at DCA.
So is it fair? I know there was a period of development at California Adventure that was really looked at. Even California Adventure itself was considered kind of looked at from a budgetary creative point rather than a truly just invest in a creative vision, right? There was a lot of the backstory on it was a lot of kind of budget conscious design. Do you feel that he continued to propel that ideology, or not?
I think he was a bit of a middle of the road. Okay. So he became chairman of Disney Parks in October 2005, which is when Bugs Land opened, and left in December of 2009. So he wasn't there responsible for the revitalization of California Adventure per se. Okay. Star Tours 2, whatever you want to call it, Star Tours: The Adventures Continue was under him. I mean,
what about internationally? What would you view his role in the international parks?
So he managed Disneyland Paris, which was under bizarre financial restrictions, and I think some would say successfully given the financial restrictions, but it wasn't a growth era for them. It was more of a management through it. I think. I just go back to, I go back to what he announced at Expo, which was New Fantasyland, which ended up not happening the way he envisioned it. And, that was basic, and Star Tours. And, to the point where, I remember at the first Expo, Dick Cook did this great presentation about a week before he got laid off. And we called everything that was good Cook, and everything we thought was poor and underwhelming Rizzullo.
I was going to say this. I agree with Kyle that for me, in many ways, kind of whether fair or not, he was kind of summed up in the difference between the various presentations at D23. Dick Cook, just won over the fan base at that event, and Jay Rizzullo did not. So
that would be accurate.
Yeah. Okay. But this just feels like not quite fair. But I mean, it's.
Well, but how do you? What if you? It's not so much. Sure, that graph is kind of not germane to the point, but he also. I don't know how you define business acumen, but he hasn't had any experience outside of this, since he left Disney.
Yeah, I would be interested in what the counter is to that. Okay, so the next claim.
Mr. Peltz claims Trian Partners has a stake of greater than $3 billion in Disney, and to speak for all shareholders. Well, obviously, they definitionally don't speak for all shareholders, but that's kind of a point. So according to the filings, Disney, they have 6.8 million shares, which is less than they owned a year ago. So he actually sold the stock, and I want to say he made like $150 million profit because of how the stock inflated since Bob Iger took over. So he's not growing his position. Now, he does claim to have sway over Ike Perlmutter's, and I believe he does, shares, but those aren't owned by him. That's owned by his friend. And I think if you have any sort of indication of Ike's reign at Marvel, it would be a cause for concern.
Yeah, he is famously known for his budgetary conscious efforts over there as well.
And not that, there's nothing wrong with being prudent, but there's a point where it becomes, impacts the actual output, and that's where it becomes a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Yeah. So Mr. Peltz claims he has been caught in a Disney mousetrap. Well, he made $150 million. That's the kind of mousetrap I don't want to be caught in. Mr. Peltz claims that boards on which he has sat on average, have outperformed the S&P by 900 basis points annually, which is, you can see here, some have done better with him on the board, but many have not. And I'm looking at Wendy's with their surge pricing is actually down 5%. And this is, I'm trying to think of, well, I guess this is while he's been on the board. So as of a couple days ago. So the black is good, the orange is bad, and you see that the orange outweighs. Now there's some that are close, but
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm sure that you'll have, downturns as you kind of restructure and prepare for your great resurgence and things like that too. But I just have to say, one of my criticisms in recent years, extremely recent years, has been Disney hasn't been as good at messaging as they had been in the past. For me, Disney had always been kind of one of those companies that I looked to in the way that they marketed themselves, in the way that they had got their messaging out there, the ability to clearly get their kind of talking points out to the public was something I greatly admired under the previous leadership at Disney. But in like the past 18 maybe months or so, I felt less of that. This to me feels very much like a resurgence of that very clear messaging, getting out to the fan base, getting out to to the public. This is beautifully executed.
Then they talk about his Trian claims Disney has refused to engage with Mr. Peltz. Do they mean they refused to have him on the board? Sure, but did they not talk to him? They talked to him as defined in the old proxy statement several times, and has declined to meet with them as well. So,
I would. The one area where I would like to kind of dive a little bit deeper is where they have the claim over here. I would love to see like the actual quote. Like, in what context did they make this claim? What was, so it could, so I can kind of look back and make sure that I understand what they said versus the Disney interpretation of what they said. That would be like my only criticism here.
Trian claims Disney board is close to new ideas and refuses to heed input from shareholders. Those are two separate things. I would say, obviously, the board is not close to new ideas based off of, joint streaming ventures for sports and, I don't know what is at a board level, but it's investing $60 billion in the parks. And the board's not just kind of sitting there waiting for the business to die. And then, Disney has made deals with things like Value Act and I'm trying to remember the other one. I want to say Third Point.
That's listed.
Yeah, where they brought Carolyn Everson on the board. So they have. It just, I think we all know what's really going on here, right? Ike is upset that he got fired from Disney and wants to, be a thorn on Bob Iger's side. So, and obviously Bob Iger doesn't want to have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So that's why they're pushing back.
And then we have Peltz claiming that Disney Plus is an emerging streaming business that has been poorly managed.
I guess that depends on your definition, right? Like, poorly managed compared to what? Like, could things have gone better at certain points? Absolutely. Is it better managed than Peacock, HBO Max?
Do be asking regarding Perlmutter, laid off versus fired.
Okay, yeah. Laid off. Sure.
Okay.
Right. that line gets blurred in a layoff, right? You're not laying off your favorite employees.
Regarding the management of Disney Plus, I was actually sharing on Twitter this morning. Just every once in a while, I kind of sit and think back on all my excitement about Disney Plus and how it's all been just wasted. And I am no longer excited about Disney Plus. And just, it's like over the years, I've been a first adopter with a lot of Disney stuff that they didn't support. I could go through the list: Pal Mickey, glow with the show ears, etc. And when Iger got up there and talked about Disney Plus and opening the vault doors, and I mean, I had all these visions of grandeur. And yeah, I mean, I know Alex often bemoans the fact of he was a founding member. You did that founder thing, and there's not even like a simple acknowledgement of that within the interface.
There's no one there who remembers that was a thing. They've gone through so much time.
Yeah.
And obviously not. There's been several leadership changes, but and leadership changes at Disney Plus, leadership changes at Disney. So yeah, I mean, I think things could have gone better. I don't know that Nelson Peltz giving input is going to bring more stability, which is really what Disney needs, right? They need to not keep changing the strategy every 6 months. They need to kind of figure out what works, double down on that, and then figure out how they're going to grow. I mean, it's not rocket science, but obviously things like COVID, the writer strikes, the executive changes have just caused Disney to be on quicksand. There's always been some sort of, we got through COVID, and then there was the Bob Chapek turmoil. Bob Iger came in, then there were strikes, and so we really haven't had that chance to kind of what's the normal Disney look like, right? Until basically right now, and it'd be nice to kind of let them play that out. And I mean, there was major trouble. I mean, and I'm not putting Bob Iger is not blameless here, but the question is are these people going to help solve the problem or solve the problem, not solve the problem,
right.
Not to get personal. We talked yesterday about the Blackwells, and it's not that I have nothing against the Blackwells, but it's pretty clear they don't know what they're talking about, which, anyone who's listened to those earnings conference calls, you can hear a lot of investors talk about, express themselves in ways that show they don't know what they're talking about. Whether, is the Disney brand too male focused? Like what? Like it's just, you want to get the right team in there, and the board not being a yes body has definitely been a problem, particularly in the Michael Eisner, towards the tail end of the Michael Eisner era, where like the head of his kids' high school was on the board, but the board is different now. The board has already exercised change. They pushed back to Iger, then they also pushed back to Chapek and brought back Iger. So they're not a quiet board like other boards have been in the past of Disney. So I'm totally okay with people bringing up other nominees. Carolyn Everson, for example, she was not a Disney pick. She came from Third Point Capital as a sort of a consensus pick. And I just, Nelson Peltz has an axe to grind. Jay Rizzullo has an actual grind, whether right or wrong but it's just not going to be conducive to building Disney to the future, which is really what I care about, right? Making more Disney and making Disney better. I'm not loyal to Bob Iger. I'm just loyal to as a consumer, wanting to get the best product out there. And, it's been shown time and time again that neither Jay nor Nelson have been consumer focused. And, maybe they shouldn't be because they're shareholders and that they're there to make the most money. But I believe that quality will out, right? that it's best when Disney does the best product and then they make the most money off of that because it's the best. And, sort of famously, Ike's big pushback was not hiring Robert Downey Jr. for Captain America: Civil War, which would have, been cheaper, but would have made a far inferior film.
Mm-hmm. So if there was a group out there, because I mean, obviously no board of directors, no CEO is perfect. If there was someone out there kind of challenging Iger and the leadership, what points would capture your attention? What could these groups have said that would have made you go, oh, well,
A good
maybe.
idea. I mean,
Well, but like, do you have anything specific in mind? Like, not even like in arenas, like, because they talk very generically about technology, but yet you have pointed out in your article last night and our discussion yesterday how, well, no, actually Disney has embraced technology. They just haven't done it correctly.
Well, I think if they said something like, hey, the Disneyland app stinks, like, because that would have shown some sort of understanding that, yes, their app stinks and they should make it better, or provided, I mean, well, ideally it'd be something where I go, oh man, that's a great idea. I wish I thought of that.
Okay.
And, it's, they show neither competency or brilliancy to show that they have, I mean, if you just saying, oh, they should embrace AI is like the laziest way to say that they should do something, because it's, how many, I've been around long enough to see something becomes a buzzword, all the companies run around to follow it, and then it's not a sound policy. I mean, that's part of how they got in the streaming mess, right? They raced to streaming, they tried to grow it as fast as they could, but they didn't price it in a way that could pay for itself. And
like, for me, right or wrong, if you had tangibles like we see an opportunity for Disney Plus to be a location where we can create a community of content creators and a community that becomes a destination viewing for the Disney fan base who are interested in the parks. We know there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that are developing tremendous followings, and we would like to kind of get into that base with our unique resources and kind of build that community within that Disney Plus umbrella. I'd be like, oh, cool, okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah, and what's the strategy? What's the release strategy? What's the theatrical? What's the Disney? What should be on Disney Plus? I mean,
I keep going back to Disney Plus because it's my greatest source of frustration in many ways, because like things come and go, you don't really even know. Like,
no, but I think
not a
Disney
lot
Plus,
of like party, yay.
It's right to be focused on Disney Plus because the theme parks are kind of, taking care of themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Disney Plus is the media market is where the problem is, and if you have the genius answer, I'm not saying you should even share it, but give me hints that you have an idea, and they don't. And so why waste everyone's time with this? I mean, and they're spending their own money on it. They have to pay for the proxy mailings and all this. And then Disney has to pay their money to pay for the proxy mailings and all this. And I don't know, it just seems like a profound waste of, you wonder how many, and by no means should Iger become a king where, no one's able to challenge him or, but just these don't seem like the right people. And every minute Bob Iger has to waste on this is a minute he's not putting towards something that can actually help the company. You don't want to be a defensive CEO, which this is what it is. And it's just such a waste of time. And, there was a time, the last one, the Save Disney battle, which obviously was a little bit different because it was Roy Disney and he had the clout. But there were good ideas there. They pointed out, even when Comcast came on and tried to do a hostile takeover, there were ideas there that represented, we go, oh, you know what, that may make sense. Mm-hmm. But that's just not happening this time. And so therefore, I don't see any reason to support you. And particularly at this juncture, the stock price is doing well compared to the peers. I'm in my column tonight, I'm going to be comparing, Disney to Warner Brothers and Paramount, and I don't have the stock prices in front of me, but I imagine Disney is outshining them by quite a bit, because Paramount can barely afford to pay its bills, and Warner Brothers Discovery is just playing number voodoo to make things work. I mean, hopefully they have some good success with Dune Part 2, but yeah, it's and it makes you wonder, and why is Disney facing this when they're better run than the other entertainment companies? And it's personal, right? So that's why there's no empirical reason why Disney is not under managed compared to other people in the same industry. This is the challenge Disney is facing is faced by every entertainment company.
And as a totally uneducated, not business-minded individual, sometimes I wonder if they're doing better because of their kind of historical track record. I don't know, kind of like does it take longer to turn somebody off, to get somebody to walk away because of their track record than with other brands?
Well,
does that make sense? I give them more rope to.
Well, but that's not where they're making their. It's not like they're making their money off of affinity. I mean, maybe on the park side, people are going because they want to go, but I don't think the parks are where really the concern is.
But you don't think that plays into somewhat of a shareholder mindset at all either? And there, I mean, I understand that there is a bulk of the shares that are very much focused on bottom line. It is not about brand affinity, right. But I don't know, obviously, percentage wise, like, but
no,
there's,
I mean,
that people are going to be more patient with the Disney company finding their way than they will, company X.
The reason Disney's reaching out to us is a PR campaign, right? They don't care about our votes. I don't say they're not important, but they're not important. I mean, of the billions of outstanding shares, most of them are held by mutual funds and pension plans and things like that.
So you're telling me this presentation is not for the guy on the phone doing this 24/7. It's for the consumer like me.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably the concern, I think, would be if the consumer starts to turn on Disney because of the things Nelson Peltz and others are saying, then that could influence the people making the real decisions. Absolutely. I mean, Save Disney was a grassroots effort that ended up being successful because, they saw the groundswell of disappointment. And
so Disney. So you're saying, sorry to keep jumping in.
No problem.
So you're saying that you think Disney should be more concerned about things like the Frommer's article that labeled the much touted Lightning Lane Genie Plus as a scam.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that in this moment. This is the most pressing issue for them is the shareholder. But I think they should be concerned. I mean, they should always be concerned about the PR of it. But the reason that they're reaching out to us with letters and Ludwig von Drake and all that stuff, is to kind of get the dialogue to be supportive of them as opposed to being supportive of Nelson Peltz. Because while we don't necessarily control the shares, if there, as there was during Save Disney, if there's resentment to the way the Walt Disney Company is being run, then that could, turn off the business itself, but also influence pension plans and things. Because if you own Disney through a mutual fund, you can provide that instruction. And if the people are giving Charles Schwab a bunch of instructions to vote against the Disney nominees, that might raise some eyebrows as to why. I think, I think if Nelson Peltz thought there was like a huge, great future for the Disney stock price, that he's going to make a lot better and he's going to win this, he wouldn't have sold shares, right? You don't sell shares in a proxy fight, you buy them. So, a lot of this is theater. Disney obviously and while the number won't be influenced by our share, like the result will probably not be influenced by us, but the percentage would be, right? And they want every percentage point they can to say, Disney overwhelmingly won, as opposed to it was close.
Is that something that a business reporter would follow up with Peltz on? Be like, well, if given your take here, why did you sell these? Why wouldn't you hold these shares? And
I just don't know that they've done that. I don't know that he's done sort of media interviews in that as of late.
And Doobie says CEO Iger, didn't he sell shares, and how would you frame that?
I saw that report, but I don't see that filing, so I don't know. I saw it one place.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, but also he's gonna. When he sells, that's part of his compensation, and he is not trying to get on the board, so it's a little bit different. I mean, that's where the bulk of his money comes from. So,
gotcha.
If he wants to, diversify.
And perhaps that would be Peltz's answer, right? I'm fueling my initiative with whatever.
Yeah, but he's the one waging the battle, right? I mean, he's betting against himself, and it's different than Bob Iger, who's not running for anything here. He's not.
By the way, we're live, so if you want to jump in the chat and ask questions, feel free. Because I feel like this is one of those discussions where people are like yelling at their screen or whatever, going, but why don't you ask this? So feel free to jump in and we'll discuss it. But yeah, I mean,
next week we get Bob Iger's going to do a Q&A session over at, I think, Morgan Stanley media conference. So I imagine he will be asked about this. I imagine he probably won't say much because you get into tricky SEC waters when you start commenting on these things. But I think as a Disney fan, it's a little frustrating to deal with this just because there's so much more exciting stuff you want Disney to be planning. Like, we just talked about live action. What's the live action plan? Well, that's not what people are going to ask about now. They're going to ask about Nelson Peltz and shared board members and things. It's not that's not important. It's just not as much fun.
Well, and I want more understanding of why Disney Lightning Lane seems to be such an inferior product to FastPass that was free. So
yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's merely the fact that you didn't pay for FastPass versus since you pay for Lightning Lane, you have a different expectation. I feel like people are legitimately coming away from this feeling like I paid for something that's an inferior product.
Yeah, well, I mean, when something is free, it doesn't. You can, when things go wrong, it's less bad. When you pay for it and things go wrong, then there's a problem. And there's no mechanism. I mean, I'm sure Guest Relations has tools, but there's no mechanism for, oh, I'm sorry, the Lightning Lane wait was 20 minutes, which is more than our 15-minute promise. Therefore,
does it still have a 15-minute promise? I haven't even looked lately to see. So
I mean, I don't know. That's the internal promise. I don't know that they say it out there.
Yeah, I can't remember.
You don't want to wait 25 minutes on Lightning Lane.
Because
I think the official promise is, expedited. So as long as it's shorter than the standby line, it's officially okay. But
I feel like the rhetoric for Universal Express was like half the queue, was like under half the queue or something.
Yeah, well, that's a ripoff too. I got personally ripped off by that. So.
Well, yes, I know you got burned by Universal Express. I'm a big fan. I haven't had that experience. When's the shareholder meeting? To be asking, do you know off the top of your head?
I want to say April 4th.
I looked. I didn't see it just listed where I looked, so I was going to answer that. I want to get our team together sometime to do a roundtable on Lightning Lane. And I want to get together and do a roundtable, mostly though on Disney Plus. I would love to do kind of like, let's look back and like talk to each of our team. And what was your expectation?
April 3rd.
April 3rd. Okay. What was your expectation for Disney Plus versus what it's been on its arrival? Because I mean, thankfully I adjusted my expectations very quickly.
I did too. There's three different. There's the Disney Plus that they announced, back in the day, right? Then there's the Disney Plus that Bob Chapek wanted to deliver, and then there's a Disney Plus that Bob Iger wants to deliver, and those are three distinct and very different offerings, despite the fact that they're one app in terms of the content that's on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're not going to get the pipe dream of what they initially promised. None of them do, right? HBO Max or Max, Peacock, what is it called? Paramount Plus. None of them are delivering at the levels that they want because they have to cut costs, and to cut costs, you got to cut content. When we cut content, that means less stuff. So, I mean, that's not going to change. That's you may see as they raise prices a little bit more and a little bit more, but you're not going to see that sort of every day there's some big new thing on Disney Plus, because quite frankly, the marketplace couldn't support it. There's too much TV, so there needed to be less TV.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes library content as well as originals. So there's going to be less on Disney Plus, and it's not a Disney Plus problem as a market problem in that they all are doing it. Max is sort of, I would say, the most egregious. I mean, they have whole movies that they're just not releasing. Yeah, I mean, we're watching the Annies, and they get political by saying release Coyote versus Acme. So
it makes me so sad. I'm sorry. That makes me. What a weird era to be living in that whole movies get created and just don't appear.
I mean, that happened. I mean, that's happened for history, right? Like, how many times have you heard of a pilot you really wanted to see, and there's no way to ever see it? But I think what's interesting, well, I think about not just Disney Plus, but all the services. There's been shows that I was really excited about, and they launched, and then either they weren't as good as I hoped they were, or they were great and they just disappeared. Like, I can't watch. It's not, I would say Disney Plus is perhaps the least egregious for me personally, but there's been shows that I've loved on Max that just fade off into the sunset or pivoted. Paramount Plus, definitely. I'm not sure that I watched anything on Peacock, but probably if I did, there'd be something there that I'm missing. So there's like one or two good shows on each of these things, and it's just it's not sustainable. So you're going to see mergers, you're going to see bundling, and it's the only way for this to work. And so I don't know what's going to happen. Disney, as I said, Disney's in a better spot than folks like Paramount, but we'll see. Well, if anyone's telling you what this is going to look like in 3 years, they're lying. Well,
can I share something with you as you wrap up that'll kind of brighten your day?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. It's a video out of Tokyo. It is their commercial for the soon to open, I want to say Fantasy Springs. Am I getting the name right? And it's got, I'm not sharing the music here. I'll share the music. Let you see most of the visuals here. This just looks so fun. I love that there's like these different areas. They have a like an attraction and a restaurant. It's like a collection of experiences with each of these, whether it's Rapunzel with the attraction and then Eat at the Snuggly Duckling, or Peter Pan with its 3D attraction, or Frozen, and then you have kind of an Arendelle like a large royal table banquet idea. So super cool. I'm excited for it.
I don't know much about it. I'm seeing if we can get somebody on who knows more about it than I do.
Oh, okay.
Except I didn't read the story last night because I was in the planning committee.
No worries. But yeah.
But I can say I did take a monorail around it, and the scope of it looks quite impressive.
Like, as far as just compare it for us in the US, can you think of like a footprint size comparative? Are you able to wrap your head around it in that way?
I don't, I haven't compared it like literally footprint size. I mean, I don't know what the acreage is compared to anything else. It's out there. But I mean, it's basically like half a theme park kind of added on to the back of it. And so it's, I don't know how it's all, obviously, the attractions themselves matter more than, the scope. And it's pretty easy to make a picture of a theme park look good if you look at it from the right angle. But, Tokyo's kind of earned the reputation of doing things, at least very thorough. But I'm going to ask, so Luke is actually here, going to come on. I'm going to ask him because he wrote this article about Fantasy Springs, so he probably knows more about what's going on.
Okay.
So why don't you come on, Luke?
Hello.
So we're 100 days away. I guess this is opening June 6th. For people who maybe are unaware, give them a little introduction as to what's coming to Tokyo Disney Sea.
Yeah, so a lot is the key word there. It's going to be their 8th themed port called Fantasy Springs, and it marks the largest expansion to that park in its history. So with this, usually when we're looking at expansions, like Avengers Campus or that sort of thing that's happened recently, you get maybe 1-2 attractions. Here we have 4 brand new attractions. So there's Anna and Elsa's Frozen Journey, which is the story of Frozen. It sounds like it's going to be more of a story of the movie itself, as opposed to kind of a clip show almost that you get with Frozen Ever After at Epcot and Hong Kong Disneyland. So that's the main attraction in the Frozen Kingdom, which will also have the Royal Banquet of Arendelle restaurant, which looks to be really beautiful. And then the second area is Rapunzel's Forest, which is going to have another boat ride, but this one is going to take you through the world of Tangled, and you're going to be able to see the beautiful moment from the film with the Lantern Festival. In fact, the name of the attraction is Rapunzel's Lantern Festival. So that, I think, is going to be a really stunning moment for I'm sure with how attractions are over at Tokyo, I'm sure that's going to be a really beautiful moment. Very appropriately, they have their main restaurant in the Tangled area, the Tangled Village, is the Snuggly Ducklings. So you're going to be able to dine in a reproduction of the iconic pub from the film. So that's going to be really cool.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I just all of the ways that this is being described is exactly kind of what I enjoy about Fantasyland. It's like you get to be reminded of the stories that you love, right? So you kind of recount those moments from Rapunzel, from Elsa and Anna's adventure, and then go sit and dine and enjoy the environment as well. So yeah, oh no, I'm sorry. Okay, and then there's also Peter Pan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you love Fantasyland, you're probably gonna like the Peter Pan. It looks like, even though they have Peter Pan's flight over at Tokyo Disneyland, this looks like it's going to be the next big thing. They have Skull Rock and the Jolly Roger, very similar to how it appears at Disneyland Paris, but with a slightly more cartoony vibe to it. You'll be able to see those with the backdrop of the Neverland Mountains.
I'm going to pull up a picture from the article.
Yeah.
So with this, this attraction coming to Fantasy Springs, do you think it's likely that then they would take this opportunity to redo the attraction at Tokyo Disneyland into something else?
I think
side by side.
I think so, because they don't have quite the blessing of size over there that they do in, say, Disney World or Disneyland Paris. So eventually something's got to give. And I haven't personally been to Tokyo, but I've seen quite a bit from their Fantasyland, and their Snow White looks like it hasn't been changed. And same with their Peter Pan. They're right next to each other. They both look really old and dated. So they still have the original Dumbo with
that was surreal, going on like a 9-arm Dumbo.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, really?
So I could see that whole area being ripe for something new.
We have a full collection of images and videos from Tokyo Disney Sea collected in this report by Luke. We will have the link below so you can really browse what's coming June 6th to the Tokyo park.
And someone went through and added in all the concept images that were released since I did this article too. So there's a whole lot more in there too. You can look at some screenshots from some of the videos they released, showcasing what the land actually looks like now, and then some concept art for each of the different areas. And there's even a few glimpses of some of the food in there too.
One of the things I really appreciated about that aerial view that they offer in this is that they weren't afraid to do it in the midst of construction, which I feel like is not something we've seen as often stateside, where if there was still scaffolding, we wouldn't necessarily, you know, we would get like a computerized rendition of it, but to just take a drone in essence and fly it over Fantasy Springs about 100 days out now, I really appreciate that they did that, because you can see the beauty of Arendelle, even though that scaffolding, you know, is there, because it isn't complete.
I was going to say, I think it's because it's Tokyo and everything is so beautiful that even with a little bit of scaffolding, you don't really mind. But yeah, the Peter Pan area is going to have 2 attractions. One of them is going to be a, you know, kind of a modern take sort of on Peter Pan's flight. It'll be called Peter Pan's Neverland Adventure. And then there's another ride, a Tinkerbell ride called Fairy Tinkerbell's Busy Buggies. And I thought that this was going to be a just like a flat ride, but it looks like it's like a cute little outdoor dark ride of sorts.
I think kind of like
an outdoor dark ride.
Well, to me,
a bright ride.
Looking at it, it's like a deeper canvassed Heimlich, right?
Yeah, that's what
very
simple.
Yeah, and taking you through the 4 different seasons before going back to Tinkerbell's voyage. I think it's a really unique idea for a ride. I'll be interested to see that.
Yeah, so we are also. I'm like I say, I'm very excited to see what this does. And we've often seen kind of some of the development of Oriental Land Company's projects, the OLC's projects, you know, because it's WDI, but with the Oriental Land Company funding, right? But we've seen a lot of that kind of spill over, the technologies, the creations kind of, you know, spill over into our US experiences too. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of takeaways we see over here.
Yeah, you don't often get the same exact attractions, but the technology, you know, like Trackless Dark Ride started there with Pooh's Honey Hunt and Aquatopia, eventually made its way stateside with, I guess Rise was the first one, Rise of the Resistance.
I think so.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say so.
In the States, at least.
In the
Well,
States.
I guess it depends on how you get. Isn't it like Luigi's, right?
Oh yeah. Luigi's. Luigi's technically counts, I guess.
Yeah. So
it's like Aquatopia on land.
Yeah. Aquatopia on land. Some might call that Autopia.
So just Autopia.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
And Luke, you also got to do a tour today.
I did, yeah.
I honestly don't know, so I'm asking.
Yeah. So I got to tour the Evermore Resort at it's not on Disney World property, but it is so very close to Disney World property that it might as well be. And it's this huge new development that features houses that you can rent, flats that you can rent, and there's also a Conrad Hotel as part of the area. So what we're looking at here is their 9-bedroom house. So 9 bedrooms in one house, complete with a movie theater, as you can see, beautiful furnishings, a full kitchen. There's 2 sets of bunk beds like this, so 8 beds in a bunk total. It's really cool. There's also an 11-bedroom house that has a slide in it, which we all got to go down at the event today, and I took a video of myself going down it. I barely made it through, but I did it.
I love it. Oh, and the beautiful lake.
Yeah, so I mean the main point of us going there was to check out the new houses, but I was impressed with this lake. I mean, this is fully chlorinated, so you can't swim in all of it, but there are sections used for swimming. But you can get a kayak on there. They have some boats that don't use gas that go through there, so it's safe to have in the same water as swimmers. And yeah, anyone using the villas or using the houses, or even staying at the Conrad Hotel can make use of that huge lakeside area.
And geographically, is this southeast, southwest? Where am I looking at?
It is
Disney World.
So
down towards Kissimmee or up towards downtown Orlando?
Neither. I mean, closer to downtown Orlando. It is right. It is honestly, it's across the street from Disney World property. So if you're leaving property by the 535, which is the road that goes up past Hotel Plaza Boulevard, you go past Hotel Plaza Boulevard where you can get into Disney Springs. You continue along the 535 for about a mile. It's on your right.
Okay.
So it's very close to Disney Springs. They offer transportation to the parks. I don't know the frequency of that or how I'm not sure on that, but they do often offer transportation. And I mean, there's a lot of amenities there. There's like 12 restaurants total if you count their different restaurants in the food hall area at the villas, and then also there's a golf course there, so they have some stuff there. There's stuff over at the Conrad Hotel, so there's a lot to see and do.
Wow, that's beautiful. Oh,
yeah.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure we've got a report coming or posted.
Yeah, we'll have there's some stuff on our Twitter or X account at the moment. But we'll have an article up hopefully later tonight.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Luke.
Yeah, of course.
Busy day.
Anything else, Mr. Ben, before we call it on this edition of Inside LP?
No, but thanks for leading this. Did you see the Rolly Crump bust?
I did not.
I just saw the headline.
On LP?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess they're at, so this is the Haunted Mansion parlor aboard the Disney Treasure. It's gonna have a bust. It's a tribute to Rolly Crump.
Oh, I love it.
And Brother Roland, forever revered for embracing the weird, from his Museum of the Weird concept that kind of was incorporated into the Haunted Mansion. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, and I love that it's kind of reminiscent of, is this like what Candleman I think of when I look at it? So I hope I'm right on that being one of his unique Museum of the Weird pieces. So did you ever get to see Rolly speak in person?
I did. That was actually when I moved down from college, from San Francisco to LA. The Ryman, at that time was the Ryman Carroll Foundation, which is now Ryman Arts, did an event at Disneyland where it was brunch at Club Day 3, and then you would go to different spots and hear from Imagineers. And so one of them was Marty, one of them was Alice Davis, and the other was Rolly Crump. And Rolly was right by Small World, obviously, it makes sense, right? But and would tell all sorts of off-color stories about his time working with Walt. So it was really cool. I'm glad I got to do that. It was, literally like my second week living in LA. So.
Oh, there you go. You did it right. Pop right in there and get into that deep Disney knowledge as a fan. That's pretty epic. Let's see. So I guess that's it for us here at Laughing Place today. By the way, we are constantly updating, so be sure to follow us on X, laughing_place. We've got a rather dynamic Instagram account as well, where we keep you updated on all things Disney, and this YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, get notified, because we come to you live with discussions of the latest Disney headlines. We also do walk and talks. We have some teammates who will wander the parks. I believe we're going to be on the East Coast tomorrow at Walt Disney World for a stroll through the park and a little bit of what's happening there later this week. I suspect we'll be coming to you from the West Coast. So be sure to like and ring the bell so you're notified when we're live in the parks or here in studio discussing things. Often on Tuesday afternoons, we have Barely Necessities where we discuss Disney merchandise. That's it's kind of hanging right now. We're not 100% sure we'll be here, but if we are and you've rung the bell, you'll get the notification. So there you go. But
we'll be live from Flower and Garden starts tomorrow, so we'll be
flower and gardening.
Gemma, I'll be running around Epcot, and then just as a reminder, 2025 vacation packages go on sale today. If you don't want to deal with all of the drama, contact your friends at Mouse Fan Travel, and they will help you out. And as a bonus, Jonas, this year you get a free water park day on your check-in day.
For those 2025 vacations. So you can talk to our friends at Mouse Fan Travel for more information about that. Tonight is a live head-to-head Disney trivia contest hosted by my husband and our son. So be sure to stop by. That's at 7:30 Pacific time. So with that, I will say see y'all real soon. Thank you so much